flag on his car.
Clearly, probably.
Huh. Never thought of that.
Wait, what does it look like? Wait, hold this
So,
up.
Hold it up to the camera.
Wait, you gotta say something so we can see you.
do shine.
It's called Do Shine. What is he saying? He says something.
He says, well, he doesn't say made with real sugar. He says, it'll tickle your innards, which is gross. Honestly, everything about this entire pop bottle experience has been a negative for me today. So
I saw the Mountain Dew that you're holding. I saw the new Mountain Dew, this Dew Shine or whatever it is, at 7-Eleven.
that sounds like do shine.
Do shine.
So they're trying to be like moonshine, right? Which
What?
Is why they got
At 7-Eleven, yes.
Yeah, the dude from the West Virginia foothills saying it will tickle your innards.
Yes.
But I saw it and I was like, nope.
Yeah.
Nope, that was my first inclination.
Thank
That's
you,
interesting.
strange old
Interesting
man.
that you picked it up. Interesting that you picked it up.
And this is not going to be a part of the podcast, but well, it's up to you, I guess. I doubt it'll be a part of the podcast. This is something you don't know about me yet. I am a rather notorious marketing whore, in that if it's new, if it's shiny, I'm buying it.
What about if it's apparently even if it's clear, you'll buy it? I'm always wary of clear pops. Like when they had, well, unless it's like Sprite, it's supposed to be clear. But when they came out with clear Pepsi, I was like, that ain't right.
It's like, how do you do that?
And Crystal Pepsi is on its way back, you know.
Is
I
it?
know. And here's the funny thing: almost all pop has no color when they make it. They add the color later.
Caramel
So
coloring.
if they came out with like clear Coke, clear cherry Coke, it would be exactly the same except for the color, and I'd freak out.
Yep.
What's interesting, though, actually, it's still not... I mean, it's not really the way it is, because you have to bleach it to get clear.
I don't even want to think about
There's bleach in it? No.
Well,
there's all sorts of stuff you shouldn't be drinking in pop.
Wait, pop's not good for me? Wait.
I'd like to think there's no bleach in here.
Well, they bleach the sugar, because real sugar is like it would be like a caramel color. It looked closer to a Werner's.
I think the sugar they use.
Well, yes, but bleaching the sugar and bleaching what's in this bottle are different things.
Well, my whole family's in the living room going nuts.
Close your door.
It's closed, and I have the fan on. I'm trying to like block out the sound. This is just what happens when we're together. It's so funny.
Okay, so Carol will have to mute.
I'll mute when I'm not talking. I'm sorry.
Okay, so
I actually don't hear it. I hear nothing.
So Kent, you're gonna do your hats off first, and then I'll go second.
I am. Okay.
But you have to mention that it's Shark Week too.
Okay. My hat off this week. It's a themed. Yeah.
Start over because you kind of broke up for a second.
Okay. Let me not move the computer. My hats off this week is the first in a very special themed series. This is. Or was, I'm a little unclear, because Shark Week on the Discovery Channel, an entire 7-day period, what's the word, not donated, an entire 7-day period dedicated to one of nature's least deadly animals that we have convinced ourselves are killers that we have to deal with because of one movie that came out 40 years ago. Thanks, Spielberg.
That is completely news to me, just so you know. I'm terrified of sharks. It's like my biggest fear.
Wait a minute. Hold on, Kent. Like in the last 3 weeks alone, like people have had like arms and legs ripped off by sharks.
But they haven't died. So I have the stats here, which sets up my hats off. I'm not just free-versing.
Okay.
So sharks kill an average of 5 people annually. 13 people are killed annually by vending machines. 30 people annually are killed by ants. 70 children choked to death on hot dogs, and icicles kill. I'm assuming falling icicles in Russia. Sharks. But anyway, so I had a. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you break up a little bit, but we can hear you.
Like
you can hear me? Okay. Let me get my. Yes, you can. Okay. So yes, my hat's off. This round goes to, let's see, what was her name? Beth Fedornak or Fedornak. Not sure how to pronounce it. A fan, I'm assuming a former fan of the Miami Marlins baseball team in Miami, Florida, who filed a lawsuit this past week against the Marlins and Miami-Dade County. Why the county got pulled into it, I don't know. But against the Marlins and Miami-Dade County because of severe head and neck and spinal injuries that she suffered as a result of being attacked by a shark. If you're wondering what this has to do with a baseball team, it was their mascot. She was headbutted by the Marlins shark mascot, which is, I think it's important to point out here, a creature made entirely of foam rubber. and
not
for some
not
odd
a
reason, no, and that's the other thing. If it was a swordfish, I could understand, but no, it's a foam rubber shark, and she got, as mascots tend to do, playfully headbutted by this shark, and apparently it was like getting in a car crash. So she's suing the Marlins, she's suing Major League Baseball, she's suing Miami-Dade County. Hats off to you, Beth Fedornak, because you know where the money is.
That may be one of the best shark attack stories I have heard in my entire life. However,
I love it.
However, my hats off goes to Veronica Pooh Nash Poliat, who is trying to keep.
Thank you for being named that, Veronica.
I know, right? You have the name Pooh in your name, which just is fantastic. Yeah. That's my whole hats off right there. Is just on your name.
Oh, okay.
How do we pick? How come every single hats off we have, the person has like a really strange name or a name we can't pronounce?
If you have a weird name, you're predisposed to some kind of weird story.
I think there must be something on Google that finds people with weird names doing weird stories. It makes it easy to remember. But either way, this woman could have kept Beth from the shark attack if she had just listened to Veronica Pooh Nash Poliat. She is from Tennessee. She's from Hamilton County, Tennessee. And her advice to beachgoers this summer has gone viral.
It's hilarious.
And on her Facebook page, she talks about all the recent shark attacks, which apparently, like, all 5 of the annual shark attacks must have happened within a week. Because Kenta said, on average. But she says in this video, and hopefully I might play a little of the sound here, but she says, go to the beach. Don't go to the ocean, okay? The ocean is the shark's house. The shark has the right to eat you up when you in his house. When chickens come to my house, guess what? They get ate. And so
when pig comes to my house, they get ate.
When pigs come to my house, they get ate. And so her advice is don't go to the ocean because that's the shark's house.
Sound advice.
Pretty sound. I mean, she's pretty funny though. Yeah.
But she starts off saying, "Hello, everybody, in Jesus' name, praise God, hallelujah." That's so that made me instantly think of my mom.
Yeah, she's like on her way to church, giving this little, snippet of advice.
Which I think could have kept people from being harmed, like Beth at the Marlins game, even though the shark was made entirely of foam rubber, and she was at a baseball field. I think that the advice still applies. Anywhere there are sharks, you don't want to be there.
This is sound. sound, here's what I wonder about Veronica's video and any of, I don't know, 400,000 videos like it you can find on YouTube. Why these people record not only in their car, but while they're driving. It's like she thought of something so profound that could save lives right now. She clearly has got one eye on the road and one on her cell phone because she's got to get the shark warning out right now.
Like, she might kill a couple people in the process of driving and recording, but the amount she'll save, it's worth the risk.
She had that kind of urgency in her video. She's like, I just gotta let you know.
You know, somebody was about to walk in. Here's the thing, Kent. You know, as funny as you're trying to be, somebody was about to walk into the ocean right when she uploaded that, and then they watched it and they were like,
Never
"Oh my
mind.
God, she is so right. This is the shark's house. Why am I walking into the shark's house?" Thank you, Veronica Pooh. Thank you, Veronica Pooh.
Hats off, Veronica
There's 7.25 billion people in the world, I want to say, and there are 5 annual deaths. So whatever 5 divided by 7.25 billion is, there is that chance that what you just said was true.
Well, I think that we have to divide by the number of people that go in the ocean.
What if the number drops to 4 because of this, Kent? What if it drops
all over, Veronica?
If one person was saved, it's all worth it.
That's right.
Okay, so if you have seen this, I have to say, the other thing that makes this just over the top awesome is that on top of her video, her talking about sharks, she kind of has a hairdo that could be resembled.
Oh.
Like, it's like this thing on top of her head. Like, everything is down, and then it goes more to a point. So I just think it's really funny.
She's got a high top fade, and half of it is blonde.
So you're saying she looks like a
black people know what I'm talking about.
She kind of has that fin on top of her head. I'm just saying, up here.
Yeah, she looks like a shark. She looks like a blonde shark.
It's kind of funny.
It's pretty funny. So, okay, all right, but hold on. So we mentioned at the beginning of this, you mentioned it's Shark Week on Discovery Channel.
It is.
Might I submit, despite five human deaths a year, sharks kill quite a few animals every year in very vicious, horrible ways. And I don't understand why people have to have a week dedicated to this. Like, we all love baby seals. But we get a moratorium on loving baby seals during Shark Week because that shark busts up through the ice and we're like, yeah! There goes the seal!
It's the circle of life, baby. Circle of life. We all love it.
Just gotta watch Lion King.
The sharks aren't as nice as in Finding Nemo in real life.
Yeah, well, that's because the ones in Finding Nemo are trying to turn their life around.
Have you ever noticed, though, that sharks and, like, crocodiles and other, like, certain types of animals always get ominous music? I watched it wasn't a documentary, it was a series called Planet Earth. And they would, like, the music for the gazelles would be like do like classic music as the gazelle is just jumping across, the Serengeti or whatever, wherever gazelles are. And then or they'd be dipping their head in the water drinking, and then the crocodile will be slow, kind of like coming up, and it'll be like bon up, like Jaws music, right? Bon up, bon, and then it eats whatever's at the side of the river. And my thought is, come on, man, this crocodile's just doing what crocodiles do. Crocodile is hungry. Yep. It came into the crocodile's house. You're in the crocodile's house.
That's doing what it does.
And so why do they get, like, if I'm at my table and I'm eating some pork, you don't hear dun-dun, dun-dun.
Well, if the pigs were making the video, you would hear that music.
Well, also, it's because if you're eating some pork at your dinner table, it is too late for that pig. That ship has sailed.
Did you guys see the meme? Speaking of where it was like all these people floating on inner tubes watching a big screen TV of Jaws in the water.
I saw that.
I'm like, oh my goodness.
I couldn't do it. I'm scared to get in the bathtub after I watch Jaws.
Anyhow, I'm not saying it's a shark, but I'm not saying it's not a shark.
Well, you know that shark would love to see you come into its house.
Yeah, I'm not going in the shark's house.
Isn't that what she said?
Me, open bodies of water, don't mix.
But isn't that what she said? She said, you know a shark would love to see me.
Yep.
Come up in its house.
She's kind of a big lady too, and she said, I know how to swim. Swimming ain't no problem for me. My body is a flotation device.
But I know that shark would love to see me coming up in its house.
Like,
Oh my gosh, I have to watch this. Sounds hilarious.
Then,
So funny. But she's right though too.
And then for some reason, I don't know what it. Some reason, she has to pull the black card and say, and I can swim, unlike everybody else I know.
So that calls my black card into question. She said, but I can't swim. That's what she said.
Okay,
Yep.
so since we're going to kind of talk a little bit about race in this podcast,
Speaking of race,
here's a little history lesson on why a lot of black people don't know how to swim. Historically, swimming pools were whites only, and there were no community swimming pools for black people. And so black people tended to take the covers off of fire hydrants and play in the fire hydrants.
Oh, play like
city.
in the water, like a
And so a lot of them never learned how to swim because they weren't allowed to go to the pool. And so that's continued to this day, even though black people are allowed to go to pools. It can still be like cost prohibitive because now they're in certain areas that have community pools, so you don't live in that community, or it's part of a country club and you don't have the money to be a part of a country club. So pools still kind of tend to be. I went to a pool on 4th of July. July 3rd, which was 4th of July observed this year because 4th of July fell on a Saturday this year, this past weekend. And the pool that I went to, I was one of 4 black people there. It is still very much a reality within African American culture that black people do not go to the pool all that often.
How many people total were there?
Probably about 100.
So, okay, then that's
like
statistically
4%.
important then.
Yes. Now here's there's a funny meme, and I don't know if you laugh at it if you're racist or not, but it's true and it's funny. There, the top of the meme is 2 pictures, and one is black people at a pool party and one is white people at a pool party. And the first one said white people at the pool party, and that's on top. And the white people are all in the pool and they're splashing around and throwing the ball at each other. And it says black people at the pool party, and all the black people are just staring at the pool water, like there's nobody in the pool. And black women don't like to swim often because they have weave in their hair, and so there's a weave in the water, weave in the water, children, weave in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. But that's another thing. Like black women often swim with their head above the water.
Right.
The head never goes underneath. So again, white privilege works itself out again, even at swimming pools.
My dad never.
So in that way, black women are much like the old women at my gym because they
get their hair set,
put their heads
right?
under the water. Exactly.
They go to the salon once a week and they get their hair done and they get it set.
Okay.
And they do not wash their hair.
That's why they have like the shower caps.
That's old white ladies.
That's old white ladies. That's the ones who didn't swim to start with.
That's black women's entire lives.
Right.
That's our whole life. Anyhow, so this week.
That's like the rich white ladies who could afford to do that too. No, I'm just kidding. Some of them aren't. So
4th of July, let's talk about 4th of July here. Or patriotism. We're going to talk about patriotism. So 4th of July has just passed, and people have shown their patriotism, some in very, very cliched ways, some in ways that don't realize how ironic they are being, and some in ways that are entirely sardonic, purposefully. But regardless, 1776, we claimed our independence, although I know you take issue with that. You say 1789, right? 1789?
Oh, you're talking to me. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the Constitution was written in 1787 and fully ratified in 1789. And the country, in 1776, in July of 76, we declared our independence from Great Britain, and Great Britain did not especially care at that moment because, I mean, it's just the colonists mouthing off. Once some guns started going off, I guess they started going off for roughly 4 years, and there was something about George Washington in a boat, and he crossed a river, and it was cold, yada, 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 and now we're a country. Okay, so, and admittedly, my grasp of American history might be a little light. But, so from 1780 to 1787, we had an experiment with the Articles of Confederation, which was an attempt at why am I teaching history here? You know this.
I'm loving it because my area of expertise is the early American Republic, and I'm actually just fascinated that somebody else knows this. So.
Oh well, sure. That's okay.
I'm actually be still my heart, Kat. Be still my heart.
my sense, and maybe if this is your expertise, my sense of the Articles of Confederation, correct me if I'm wrong, was for all that constitutional conservatives these days talk about how the federal government has too much power and the power needs to rest in the hands of the states, the Articles of Confederation was really, as I understand it, less about making a country and making political alliances between 13 essentially individual countries, and we're going to join. It was more like creating an early version of the EU than it was creating a country. Or that's kind of what I've been led to believe.
When it came to the claiming of independence of our nation, people didn't even when the Revolutionary War actually started, people didn't know exactly what they were fighting for. Some of them thought they were fighting for, better representation in Britain. Almost everybody saw themselves as British at that point. But then there were those who were saying, no, we want to be our own separate thing. We are still British, but we'd rather have our own separate space over here. And then, of course, over time, that morphed into we need to have a particular narrative. Everybody needs to get on the same page. We are all Americans. We are in the Americas. We are all Americans, and we are fighting for our independence. And that's what we ended up fighting for. But when it first started, for like the first couple of years of war raging, people had no idea. There was not one particular narrative as to what was being fought for. So it was almost like the Black Lives Matter movement. Like lots of people had different kind of views of what this movement was about. Now it's becoming more cohesive, as far as I understand. So same thing with Civil War. Same thing with many movements that start like this, although with less gunfire. But a lot of movements start, and not everybody's on the same page. And this person over here is trying to be a leader, and this person's trying to be a leader. And who's our leaders on? Okay, George Washington is our leader on this. Okay, cool. And so that's simplifying it a little bit, but it was really cool for you to say that. But either way, okay, so 4th of July just passed. Regardless of whether it was 1776 or 1789, we celebrate July 4th, 1776 as the day of our independence, when we declared independence from Great Britain and struck out on our own. And in recent weeks, though, in recent months and weeks leading up to the 4th of July, when we celebrate our patriotism through the downing of hot dogs and hamburgers and ribs and then shooting off fireworks and things like that until 3 in the morning, usually drunken neighbors and things like that, who you wouldn't trust with a glow stick. But
it's true.
In months leading up to that, there was a lot of hubbub or uproar over people walking on the American flag. A lot of this happened during the Black Lives Matter movement, as black people were being shot, unarmed black teens, and were being shot at the hands of the police. I believe they found one guy actually moved a piece of evidence, and he's now been fired and prosecuted. And so it was all caught on video. But this is the kind of thing that if there weren't video there, they would have believed the cop over the unarmed person who was shot. But so you had black people start walking on the American flag to protest, and then you had people who were saying that is dishonorable. You had one woman who was taking the flag away from people who were doing that, and the cops arrested her, not the people walking on the flag. And then you have, in addition to that, recently you have the Confederate flag issue. So there's a whole, and people are saying, it's the same way people view the Confederate flag as a way Jews view the Nazis. I am one of those people. And so you've got all sorts of issues flying around about patriotism. So you have patriots saying, don't walk on the American flag. You have people who say, who are patriots in the South who say, no, this is about Southern heritage. It's not about hate. And so flags are kind of a big issue right now, and it's all within the American context. Everybody thinks that they're American and believes that you are basically poo-pooing on America's heritage by stepping on the American flag or stepping on the Confederate flag. So what do you guys think? What are your guys' thoughts? I'm going to edit out everything I just said there, but what are your guys' thoughts on patriotism and the flag issue that's going on, the flag issues that are going on right now in the United States?
You look like you're ready to talk, Ken. Go ahead.
There's always that super long pause at the beginning. Nobody knows who's up. I consider myself a very patriotic person. Maybe, I don't know. I don't feel more or less patriotic than I did as a kid, but I had a grandfather fly in World War II, and I had an uncle who was drafted and fought in Vietnam. I mean, we have a legacy of military service, if not heroism, in my family, and I'm very proud of my family members who served in the military. And I pledged allegiance every morning for, I guess, 7 years in elementary school. And being an American is an important part of my identity, and I look at the American flag and I feel a sense of pride and belonging and hope and optimism that I completely understand how there are people who are members of other minority groups who feel less of that, or in some cases even the opposite of that, despite the fact that I am 1/64th minority. I feel
which minority is it this week?
It's black, actually. It's 1/64th
black this week again. Okay, we're back to black. Okay.
It still is.
Wasn't it Native American?
You go black, you never go back.
What was it a couple of weeks ago?
I made up the thing about Native American. However,
right.
Did
you hear me? I said when you go black, you never go back, right? You've got to claim that.
I don't know what she's talking about. I've never heard that.
I have no idea. I have not gone. You know, yes, right.
I understand,
okay.
It's once you go black, you're going to need a wheelchair, but that's what I've heard.
Oh,
that's what I've heard.
I was in error, but wow, wow. Was that just a plug for your ego? I mean, wow, what really?
Oh, we're never getting sponsors for this podcast.
I am uncomfortable.
You need to edit that part out, baby. That's not even appropriate.
Okay, all right, all right. Christian.
Oh.
Jesus!
Yeah, so.
Jesus! Yes! Yay!
Paige. Thank you, Jesus.
I just can't even.
Thank you, Jesus, for linear digital. Yeah, so.
Anyway.
So yeah, I consider myself a patriotic sort, to the point that until I was probably. Until I was in my how old am I now? Until I was in my mid-20s, I probably didn't. I didn't think about it too much. I have not missed, and I take the responsibility of being an American seriously, more seriously than I think about anybody I know. If you've ever seen one of 50 quizzes on Facebook saying answer 21 questions to find out how much you know about America, I always get 21 out of 21.
I did that yesterday, and it said I bleed red, white, and blue. I was like,
yes, exactly. I'm sure you got them all right. I mean, that's
here's the thing.
how we roll.
I guessed a couple. I was like,
oh, really?
I'm pretty sure it's this many members of Congress, but
see, but here's the difference between you and me. I didn't guess.
Oh.
So, burn. Yeah, it's 435.
Well, tell me, what was George Washington's middle name?
Alexander. I don't know. Did he have a middle name?
Trick question.
I've never heard of it.
No middle name.
George Washington had no middle name? I
don't know. I'm just making that up to make myself feel better for a second.
Harry S. Truman. All right. Yeah. All right. So until I was in my mid-20s, I didn't think about it too hard. I mean, I voted for the first time when I was 19, and then when I was 23, 27, 31, 35, and I'm not going to keep going because that would reveal how old I am. But I see people, and I guess I have learned, or I've come to feel in the last however many years, that being patriotic, specifically about being patriotic to America, to the United States, to the ideals of the United States, means acceptance and tolerance for those who are not. And I think if you're going to walk on the flag or burn the flag or deposit whatever vile substances you're going to on the flag, you are a first-class jackwagon, or whatever word you want to drop in there. I'm going to say the word now, douche nozzle, and maybe you want to edit that in. Maybe you don't. Doesn't matter. Cut that whole section. But yeah, I think. So that's what I think of you. But I also recognize your right to do it, no matter who it offends. And the fact that it offends me, and the fact that you can offend me without fear of prosecution or fine or imprisonment or censure from the government, makes this a very special place.
I am very much on the same page with you, Kent. I have, my grandparents were in the military. My parents were in the Air Force. That's how they met. I've always felt a lot of pride about my country, and I remember in college I took a class with Rex Hamilton. Calvin might know him. You know
Sexy
Rex?
Rexy.
Sexy Rexy.
Yeah, I know Sexy Rexy.
He was one of my favorites.
Wait a second. Is that the guy? Because I had a roommate years ago who talked about a Sexy Rexy. Was he at Cornerstone?
I don't know if he was ever at Cornerstone. Was he?
Not that I know of. They're out in California now, right? But they were at Rochester.
In California now. But I think anybody by the name
of
Rex is going to be called Sexy Rex.
Oh, maybe so. All right.
Probably.
Go on.
But anyway, he was just pretty open about being a pacifist, and I remember having a discussion in class one time where me and one of my friends, her dad was still active in the military. Basically, we were getting kind of upset because he was mostly playing devil's advocate, just kind of facilitating this discussion about patriotism. Patriotism is kind of a form of idolatry, and thing like it, or it can be a form of idolatry if you're putting the what's best for the country ahead of what's best for mankind. And he was, being a pacifist, he was mostly referring to war and stuff. Is there ever a time that Christians should enter war? And that's a whole other discussion. But I remember him talking about the Pledge of Allegiance in particular and saying, like, is that something that Christians should say? Should we pledge allegiance to a flag? Does that contradict anything in our faith? Is it making the flag an idol? And I'll be honest, like, I still kind of struggle with it sometimes. Like I put my hand over my heart and sing along when the national anthem's played at baseball games, and I haven't said the Pledge of Allegiance in a long time, just because he just really put a seed of doubt basically in my head about is that a bad thing to pledge allegiance to the flag and the United States of America? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I guess I pledge allegiance to like my husband, and that's not bad. But anyway, it made me think a lot, and I think there's something. It's something to consider as far as our faith in putting God's kingdom before our nation. And anyway, again, a much bigger topic. But what I really wanted to say is that I don't get the Confederate flag thing. I've always thought it was weird that people flew the Confederate flag, because when I see it, all I think of is the Civil War, and I feel like, I mean, people say it was just it's a symbol of the South, and I get that. Like, they have heritage, and like their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents grew up there, and that reminds them of, where they come from. But even like as a white person, I see that and I think of slavery, and so kind of like Kent said, I mean, I support somebody's right if they want to fly that flag. I mean, freedom of speech, they can, but like people need to be aware of what it communicates, and to me it's not necessarily good. But I do think that like banning it altogether just because I have a different kind of perspective isn't necessarily the answer.
Let me just say, I did not realize that we were talking about the Confederate flag yet. I was talking only about the red, white, and blue, the stars and stripes, Old Glory, the grand old flag, because my feelings on the Confederate flag are a little different.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put words in your mouth. I guess I just meant that you might disagree with someone, but
yes.
I guess I'm saying I would still defend their right to think differently than me.
Right, and we'll talk about the Confederate flag. We'll talk about the Confederate flag at length later on in the podcast. But thank you for broaching. Thank you for broaching it, Kara. Yeah.
So I've always been proud to be an American, and I guess you could say patriotic, and I love going to the 4th of July for fireworks and all of that. I think that the men and women who fight for us to have freedoms are amazing, and I'm so thankful for all that have sacrificed for us to have the freedoms that we do have. And I think the basis for a lot of things, at least the ideals behind them and what a lot of the founding documents say, are beautiful and progressive. Now, as far as the practice, when we get into the Confederate flag and where some of those things weren't practiced or implemented, that's a different issue. I will say that I take offense when people disregard and disrespect things that are supposed to be a symbol of our freedom, because I think so many have fought so hard for that. And so I think that that's, disrespectful. My grandpa served, my uncles have served, my brother has served, and I've been at many funerals where their caskets have been draped with the flag. And we have those flags as a symbol of them and their service and what they've given. Luckily, we haven't lost any in the service of this country, and that's awesome, and I'm thankful for that. But many have, and so I think that symbolism is far-reaching, and that it needs to be honored and respected. I know we're going to kind of hold off on the Confederate thing, but I would say that I think some of the areas that we haven't implemented, the ideas of what America was founded on, that all men are created equal and stand up for those symbols here, makes me grieve a little bit for America too, because everybody doesn't have that experience.
So I guess I too want to say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free.
Dang it, you got there first.
And I won't forget the ones who died.
Hoping to be able to jump in.
Is that right to me?
And I'll gladly stand up next to you.
Next to you.
And defend her still today. Because
there ain't no doubt I love this land.
God bless.
God bless
the
USA.
from the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the too far.
It's for one thing, it's the Tea Party national anthem. So I don't know how you want to go.
I'm black. I don't think I'm welcome in the Tea Party.
No.
Unless I'm what's that one guy's name? One black guy who's a Republican.
Alan Keyes. Alan West.
Alan West.
Well,
Alan
yeah.
West. Either way. Okay, so I am proud to be an American, and my father served in the United States Marine Corps with distinction, 16 years before he was honorably discharged. He went to the Naval Academy. I've lived all over I lived in, I was born in Virginia, lived in Maryland, Washington, D.C., North Carolina, Japan for 4 years, while my dad served this country. And he was stationed in more places than that. But I come from a family that respects the sacrifices of those who are in the armed forces. We then also respect the office of the president, who has to make very difficult decisions to send officers into harm's way. Whether that president has served in the military or not, a lot of people make that distinction. Well, this person never served in the military or not. Look, it's hard to send anybody into a military theater of war. So I don't care whether the person served there or not. That is a tough position to be in, commander-in-chief. So greatly respect the office of the presidency, which is why when Bill Clinton was caught doing what he did with Monica Lewinsky, I really felt like it cheapened the office of the presidency. It cheapened the Oval Office. This isn't about that, but that just kind of goes to show how we view our patriotism, I guess. That's how we're patriotic. And so the 4th of July has great meaning to us as a family and to me personally, but then also because of my major in college, focusing on the African American experience in the earlier American Republic, I have very mixed feelings. I have very mixed feelings because I look at the early American Republic and I look at what they were fighting for, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. It's a great story, and so it means so much more to me because I know the backstory. I know the narrative. Most people, it's a day off, right? You can chug beers and you can eat ribs and all those kinds of things, and hamburgers and hot dogs and shoot off fireworks, and that's fine and good and well if that's all it is for you. But because of my major, I've got more backstory, and so it means a bit more to me. But in recent years, not even in recent years, just in the 300 some odd years that we've been a nation at this point, there has been the mistreatment of minorities, whether it's black or Hispanic or Asian or you name it, under the United States flag, the flag of the United States. And so in recent months, to use a recent example, people have been walking on the American flag. Walking across the American flag, a lot of people from the Black Lives Matter movement or people who are just fed up with police shooting unarmed black teens. So for many people looking historically and even recently, they are saying or feel that the American flag does not represent the same freedoms to me as they do to everyone else. There is a privileged class, and I am not part of it. So the American flag and the United States Constitution guarantees that all men are created equal and that we all have the same freedoms, and yet I am not privileged to have them. And so, to a degree, Kent, I agree with you when you say you have the right to do this. You have the right to walk on the American flag. You have the right to set it on fire. You have the right to do all sorts of, horrible things to it, but then you call those people names. And I understand that sentiment, but at the same time, I see it, and I'm going, I almost look at the way people are walking. It's hard for me to say this knowing that my dad was in the military, my brother was in the military. They served this country with distinction. I love this country. I love this nation. I love what it has fought for. I love that it has fought for the freedom for people to do exactly what I would never do myself. But I also understand for people who I almost feel like people who are fed up with not having the same rights as everyone else that this flag supposedly guarantees. I almost see them as someone in Iraq burning the American flag. Because people in Iraq see themselves as being occupied by American soldiers. Some people, not all people. But many people overseas see the American flag as occupiers, and so they burn them as occupiers. And so then you see black people who feel like, I don't have the same rights afforded to me. I am unarmed, and police shoot me, and then they move the evidence, and the only reason this guy is going to jail is because there was
tampering.
There was tampering. There was video. There was video of it. Otherwise, this guy would get off scot-free, and the media would portray me as some thug. So I understand and don't call people what douche noodles? Is that what you call them?
Douche nozzles.
Douche nozzles. Douche nozzles for doing this, because I understand the frustration and what causes them to do it, even though I would never do it myself. I understand the sentiment, and in some ways, I applaud their bravery to do this, to state, hey, look, this isn't working out so well for us over here. If you truly believe this, maybe, just maybe, you'll listen to us. I do think that burning the flag is often people aren't going to listen because you do it.
Right.
That's maybe too loud of a voice. But when people have no voice at all, or feel they have no voice at all, doing really extreme things makes sense. So I guess what I'm saying is I would never do it myself, but I understand it. But sometimes people think that's like a politician saying, well, I would never have an abortion myself. I support a woman's right to her own body. Unfortunately, the Constitution and the flag that they are burning affords them the freedom to do exactly what we all disdain.
Let me just jump in here, and then somebody, Jen, I guess it's your turn. I do want to amend my previous statement about douche nozzlery. That is not a term. That is not a term I would use. That's not a sentiment I would apply to the type of people that, Cal, you just spent a fair amount of time eloquently defending. And that is those people who feel oppressed and occupied, and the Black Lives Matter movement and peaceful protest, and protesters. What I had in mind is probably an older stereotype of flag burning, and that is coddled students at super liberal universities who have never had a hard day in their life, but have been won over by a communist professor. Okay, so that's
said about that in like California. There was a school that took down the American flag over the student union building or whatever because they felt it would be offensive.
Or like to be like more inclusive. They wanted
it was seen as colonialist, and so they removed it. And I got it. I understand also what you're saying. It's just like, look, these kids have never known a day of hard work in their lives. They're generally the children of privilege, and they are burning this down because a liberal professor was like, hey, you know what? Read Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States, and you will see that we are horrible human beings, and this flag, should be destroyed. I want to say that I believe the flag stands for a lot of good things, and it stands for a lot of bad things. Depending on where you're standing, I think it stands for more good things than it does bad things. Just like any flag stands for more. Not any flag. The Nazi flag pretty much doesn't stand for any good things. At this point, it did. So, which I guess takes us to the Confederate flag thing.
Yeah. I hear the trains ran on time in Nazi Germany. So,
as far as that is too soon. That is
as far as commuter schedules,
way too soon.
Wow.
Those trains
No,
were
no, no,
not
no, no, no,
commuter.
no, no, no. I was not talking about those trains.
Oh.
I meant commuter trains. And it took me a second to think, what is he talking about? What's too soon? Oh, shoot, trains.
Those trains, yes, those train
No.
cars. Okay, so you were literally talking about commuter trains.
I was literally, well, you know, they said under Mussolini the trains ran on time,
Okay,
so
well-
that's, you know, whatever.
Well, so now we have the Confederate flag thing, and I know we haven't solved the American flag thing, but the Confederate flag thing has come up in recent weeks, and people have been saying, you know, I mean, this kid went into the church in, was it South Carolina?
Yeah.
South Carolina.
Yes.
Went in
Charleston, South Carolina.
Charleston,
Yes.
South Carolina, into the African Methodist Episcopal Church, very important church in civil rights, and killed 9 people, wounded many, many others, killed the pastor, and was hoping to incite a race war by his own manifesto that they found. And before they found his manifesto, a lot of people were saying, well, this is medication, and that he wasn't racist, it was just medication. And then they found his manifesto, and then I was like, to all my friends, like, is it still medication? Well, it could still kind of be medication.
Well, he was crazy, I've heard.
Yeah, but so he goes in and wanted to incite this race war, and so it sparked this conversation around the Confederate flag again, which I think is actually avoiding the major issue of what happened.
But it's saying that that's hung in the state capital of
Right,
that state.
right.
So it's perpetuating this kind of hatred.
I think the Confederate flag issue out of this particular shooting is an ancillary thing, but we are focusing on it. People are focusing on it, so let's talk about it for a minute. The Confederate flag has flown prominently in many southern states. As we spoke about on one of our hats off was Confederate Heroes Day, still celebrated in some southern states. But the Confederate flag, I used to live in the South, and people would often tell me that the Confederate flag is a symbol of Southern pride. It is not about racism. It was never about racism. It was what you're seeing as the Confederate flag was actually the Virginia battle flag. And whether or not that is true or not, there are people who spoke about the Confederate flag and the creation of the Confederate flag. Who was it right here? So I've got it on Facebook that I've got. William T. Thompson, the designer of the Confederate flag, said this: "As a people, we are fighting to maintain the heaven-ordained supremacy of the white man over the inferior or colored race." He also said, quote, "As a national emblem, it, the Confederate flag, is significant of our higher cause, the cause of a superior race." End quote. So that's William T. Thompson, the designer of the Confederate flag. So the Confederate flag is racist. It was created for racist reasons. And a lot of people will say, well, no, it may have been created for that, but now it's Southern pride, down-home cooking, down-home values, good Christian values. We don't, anti-abortion, anti-gay marriage. You can agree with that, Calvin, right? It's not about slavery. And I have often said to people that the Confederate flag is to me what the Nazi flag is to Jewish people. And I'm not the only person who has said this. And there's never once been a cogent answer to that particular comparison. Not once have I heard anyone be able to get around that. It always goes back to, well, it doesn't mean that for me. It's Southern pride, and it's not racist. I'm not a racist. And they don't care how black people who were enslaved in this country for many, 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 many years. They don't care what it represents to that particular community, because to them it means Southern pride, even though to black people as a whole it means the fight to say that I am chattel, that I am cattle, that I am property, that I am 1/3 of a man. That's what it means to black people, and people just don't. A lot of white people, and I know that the three of you are white, and I know you guys don't feel this way, but a lot of white people I've spoken to do claim, hey, look, this is what it means to me, so it can't and shouldn't mean that to you.
Well, and here's the thing. One, how dare we tell people what it should or shouldn't mean to them? But two, okay, so just here's the thing. I think that people try to hide under the idea that, well, I never knew or I wasn't taught that it was racist, or it is just Southern pride and this and that. And here's the thing. Ignorance does not negate what it was meant for. So just because somebody is unaware does not mean that it doesn't mean that it doesn't stand for racism. So just because somebody else never told them that it was that, I mean, unless you're talking about a 4-year-old child, it's in history books. It doesn't take
I will let you off for your ignorance. I will give you a pass on your ignorance until the moment you are educated.
Exactly.
And then when you know, once I explain to you what it means, that better be the last time you defend it.
Exactly. So, maybe you never knew that, but now I'm telling you. And if you look up in any history book, that's what it was. Well, yeah, they felt, well, you know what? When anybody falls or loses in a war, you don't get to keep celebrating it. The people who revolted against the English, when the English and Scottish had their war, the Scottish people who led that revolt were exiled. They were, shipped out. When Germany had that war and they lost, they even knew better. And I think that it's really sad that Germany got it right better than we did on this.
Germany made the flag illegal.
Exactly. And then I heard somebody say, well, yeah, but they're not a democracy. Well, you know what? I don't care. Here's the thing. Maybe there's freedom of speech for you to have on your own front lawn, whatever the heck you please. But that doesn't mean that we should be pushing or supporting this from our Capitol buildings. And I think that that's a big problem in my mind. I can't help if somebody has that on their personal, property, and I can still take offense to it as well. But I think the problem lies as well that this is state supported. It is at that Capitol, flying high, and I'm sorry, but I think it should have been taken down the day that the shooting happened, or if not the next day, depending on the time frames.
Should have been taken down long before that.
It should have been down before that.
Yeah.
I agree, 100%. I don't mean that it shouldn't have been, but I mean the moment that's happened, somebody there should have had the common sense to say, you know what, maybe we need to lower this for at least now to just give some respect. I mean, here's the other argument I've heard. Is that, there's bigger issues. There's abortion, there's this, there's that. And I'm not trying to minimize these issues. They're important, but so is this. I'm just as concerned for the children today that are in this world as I am for the ones that should be or are coming into this world. And if we can't ensure the safety and a better tomorrow for the ones that we have, I think that that's a major problem. These children don't need to be afraid to go to church or to go to just whatever normal institution that they're going to or thing that they're going to, because the very state that they're in reminds people daily to hate them. I think that that's a major issue.
Yeah, I think that, it's a great point that the flag being flown at some of the state buildings is definitely a problem. That communicates something not good at all, in my opinion. There's a phrase I've heard a lot since becoming a mom, and people say it all the time, but it really has resonated with motherhood for me, is when you know better, you do better. So you don't be hard on yourself or other people for doing things that they're ignorant to, but then once you learn, that's when you step up and do it right. So maybe you've installed a car seat incorrectly. Well, I don't hold you responsible for the fact that you've done that, for the first 1 year of your son's life. But now you know how to do it. I do expect you to install it correctly from now on. Otherwise, you're purposefully putting him at risk. And I think that philosophy stands in this situation as well. Maybe to people in the South, it has absolutely stood for something good to them. It hasn't. Maybe some people aren't racist, and it just means pride and history. But when you know better, you do better. People have this reaction, and maybe it's new or maybe it's always been around, to like get defensive immediately rather than like listening and saying, oh, I didn't realize that was how you felt, or that doing this thing made you feel this way. Instead it's, well, I have the right to do this, and that's absolutely true. I mean, you do have the right to do it, but it would be really wonderful to see people start to care more about how what I'm doing affects somebody else. Not, oh, I have the right to do this. Sure, you do have the right to do that, but is that beneficial to people, to everybody around you? Because if it's clearly hurting somebody, then maybe it's time to change. Maybe you can have Southern pride in a different way. Maybe design a different flag that doesn't carry all the negative connotations to it, and you can move forward with that if that's something that's important to you. Because I get it, the South is awesome, and they have a whole different thing. A lot of places in the South feel like a different country to me. I understand that they might want to have something that's different to give them that Southern pride, but I do think there's so much hurt and pain and evil and just really like sad history associated with the Confederate flag. Like, frankly, like why did those states secede to create the Confederacy? It was mostly rooted in like the issue of slavery. So
they wanted to move and transport their property across state lines, and the property they were talking about was were their slaves.
I don't understand how you could ever say it's not, the flag's not connected to slavery.
And down in the South, they still call it the War of Northern Aggression. My mother is a family historian. She has gone to many plantations, and the plantation like the family members who still run and own the old plantations. I think I've said this in a podcast before. They'll even have like slave graveyards and slave quarters on the plantation, and they will still deny that their family members ever owned slaves. And I'm like, you're making money off of the what? Who staffed your plantation? I mean, like, what are you talking about? There were no plantations that were not staffed by slaves. But either way, one of the things that I had a thought. What was my thought?
Let me just.
You go, Ken.
I was just going to say there's a phrase that I've heard over and over and over again in the last couple weeks, and we've used it more than a dozen times in this podcast alone, and that is Southern pride. And the question that always fails to get answered is pride in what? Because I've lived my entire life in Michigan. I've spent very little time outside the state of Michigan, so I consider myself a Northerner, despite the fact that I had more ancestors fight for the Confederacy than I did for the Union. I am a Northerner, and I have almost no Northern pride. All of my pride in being a Northerner centers around one thing and one thing only, and that is that once upon a time there was a treasonous, seditious rebellion against my country, and we kicked their butt and put it down. And I'm proud of that, but I would never fly a flag about it.
Which is funny because the American flag is a treasonous flag when you think about it. I think I posted a thing on 4th of July that said, Happy Treason Day, you ungrateful colonialists.
But here's the thing, Cal. We won.
We won.
Winners write history.
Honestly,
so
yes.
But okay, so here's the thing that I do kind of take issue with as and it's going to sound bad because I am black. I'm a black person, but I am also a history major, and so I have liked the mantra that it belongs in a museum, not over the state capitol.
Yes.
I do like that particular mantra. But I don't like the push for almost the censorship or erasure of this part of our history or people's heritage. People come from where they come from. It's just a fact. Like, I come from slaves, and I have to face the fact that there were people in my family in Africa who sold their own people into slavery. I have to deal with that part of my history. Ben Affleck is being attacked right now because of this whole TV show with Henry Louis Gates, where they look at people's history through their DNA, and I guess Ben Affleck found out that he had some slave owners in his history, and he asked them not to post that, and they didn't post it, And so now they've canceled the show because they felt like that tainted the actual research and the history. And so what I'm saying,
let me just real quick ask about Ben Affleck. I did not, and that happened 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, whenever that news broke. Yeah. And I never understood why he was embarrassed about that. Now, don't take that out of context. Obviously, slave owning is bad. But I don't understand how a white man in America 150 years later could find out there were slave owners in his family tree and go, what?
Because
how could that happen?
Well, he's rich, and there are corporations that have made tons and tons of money off of slavery and have apologized, and now people are going after them for reparations, and it never goes away. And so I can understand, kind of, from his point of view. But yeah, I mean, as an individual, as a normal individual, that's one thing. As a very, very rich person, you're a target. That's just that's my only understanding. I mean, there could be a number of things that went into that. But as a history major, what scares me is this kind of almost German view of things where there's almost an erasure of the history or a desire to erase this part of our history. And so now Walmart has stopped selling anything with Confederate flags on it. Like, okay, the American flag guarantees you the right to basically get whatever you want.
Well, I don't think they should be selling it though.
Well, okay, so maybe they shouldn't be making money off of it, maybe they shouldn't, but it's a capitalist society. It is a free nation. They can sell pretty much whatever they want outside of child pornography.
But they're choosing to make a stand.
Okay, well, then you also have things like the General Lee, okay? The Dukes of Hazzard.
That was a bridge too far.
Bubba Watson he won the PGA Masters. He won the Masters, and he owns a replica car of the General Lee, which is the Dukes of Hazzard car, named after Robert E. Lee, right? Okay, and so it has a Confederate flag on the top of it. Mm-hmm. Nobody cares about the Confederate flag on the top. Most people don't care about the Confederate flag on the top of the Dukes of Hazzard car. And Bubba Watson said, I am painting over the top of the car with the American flag, which is technically going to make it not the General Lee at that point. Okay? So I think that I do think that it goes a little too far. As much as I hate the Confederate flag, as much as I know exactly what it stands for, I think there's this whole idea of let's erase it, let's get rid of it, and that's gonna. But the big thing is let's erase it, and that's gonna solve the problem. If Walmart stops selling the Confederate flag, that's gonna end racism.
Yeah, it'd be more likely if people stopped buying the American flag or the Confederate flag. That would end racism.
Right, that would show that there's some changes, right?
Exactly.
I have to give some pushback on that. I think, one, I have to say that if nothing else, I have to give a hats off or whatever you want to call it to these companies who are saying, you know what, we are going to take a stand that we think this is wrong, and we're going to choose to not profit from what we could profit from financially in this means or in this name.
Well, someone could come and say, I am offended by the cross of Jesus Christ. I don't like the fact that Walmart is selling crosses. You should get rid of crosses. And then Walmart says, in an effort to not offend, we're going to get rid of all religious iconography.
You know what? Walmart has a right to do that.
They do.
They're a private-owned store. They can do that.
But would you champion them for that?
Well, you know what? That's their choice. Here they're standing up for something.
Would you champion them for that?
I wouldn't. I would think that would suck, but okay, like.
Would you champion them? Would you say,
okay,
bravo?
I don't. First of all, I think they're two different things. One.
I'm not saying they're not two different things.
Well, here's the thing. One is something that is awesome and heroic and great and should be celebrated, okay? The other one is one that honestly nobody should be running around waving a flag over. It is a chapter in our history that we should not be proud of. And so this idea that it's Southern pride, well, what does that mean? You lost the war and you're proud of what you were doing? Because it's not something that should be proud of or celebrated. So there's that. Whereas the other, you can't compare apples and oranges and get a straight answer. It's not it's straw manning, and that's not a good argument.
No, I'm not saying that we're comparing two similar things. What I'm saying is we're comparing exactly the same reactions. So what I was saying is if Walmart did what they are doing to the Confederate flag, to the cross, because there are lots of people who are like, hey, remove religion from the public square and all that kind of stuff. I hate this. I don't like that. And companies are actually kowtowing to those things. And so right now they're kowtowing to the whole Confederate flag thing. And I guarantee you, a company as large as Walmart is going to quietly start selling them again. I guarantee you. They always do this kind of thing because now they look like they're on the right side of history for a few weeks, and then when it dies down, they'll start selling those things. Because you know what? There's a lot of money to be made in the Confederate flag, and they're going to sell them again. I guarantee it. But I'm saying, what if someone came along and said, I don't like the cross, I don't like Bibles, I don't like anything Christian, it offends me, and Walmart heard enough people saying that, enough people saying, hey, good is evil and evil is good, and they got rid of it.
It's still strawmanning it.
It's not strawmanning.
Yes, it is, because it's two different things. One is something to celebrate, one is not.
Let me offer this as a direct answer to your question, Cal, despite the fact you didn't ask it of me, and I feel a little left out by that. And that
whole question is, I don't know why she kept trying to answer it. I don't know why she kept trying to answer it. It was for you, Ken.
The question, oh, thank you. The question is, would you champion them for that? And this is going to sound, if they tried to eliminate the cross, and this is something not everybody agrees with, and this might be more of a can of worms than we want to go into, but I would say yes, because I believe, because Walmart is Jen referred to it as a private company, and there is one family that owns a lot of stock in it. But Walmart is not a private company. It's a publicly held corporation where anyone can buy stock in it. And a company that their stock is privately for sale, or is publicly for sale, has one job, and that is to increase the value of a share of the stock. And if you make a business decision with keeping shareholder value high, if you do what is right for your company, that's why I bought your stock. It wasn't to take a moral stand. My pastor takes a moral stand. This podcast takes a moral stand. I really don't, as an Apple stockholder, I don't want Apple taking a moral stand. That's not what public companies do.
That's not true. Apple absolutely takes moral stands. Like, someone called them to account for really, really terrible conditions in their Chinese factories, and they released a statement immediately. Of course, it's for public perception and things like that. But having worked for Apple, they do not want their workers mistreated. Even though I will tell you that their workers, comparatively speaking, culturally, will deal with a lot more than we will in America. So what we see as being treated terribly is not necessarily being treated terribly to the people working there, and that's a whole other conversation. But they immediately try to rectify situations. We heard that this was happening in some of our factories. We shut down that factory. We fired the people who were over that factory, and we changed out the people. Who were over the factory, and then we brought the workers back, apologized profusely, changed the entire working conditions. So, but all of that was to, of course, increase to show, hey, we're doing the right thing, and so it keeps their stocks up. But at the same time, that is in right reasoning or not, it is taking some sort of moral stand, and I think that companies do have to take moral stands, probably not as much as we on an individual level have to, but I would push back on the idea that companies don't.
Well, it kind of goes back to the best example I can give is when the movie Dirty Dancing came out. It was really controversial because
nobody puts baby in the corner. I know, right?
I learned my lesson.
But because it shows an abortion, and this was before Roe versus Wade and before it was legalized. So
I don't want to argue with you there. But Dirty Dancing was 1987.
Way
Roe
after
versus
you.
Wade was 1973.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed the year that it came out. Anyways, but interestingly enough, so that actually makes this even more interesting. It was still very controversial, and originally it was Crest was going to be backing the film as one of its sponsors and advertisers, and Crest pulled its advertising out when it heard that there was an abortion in the movie. And because they felt that they were a family-friendly, company, and they did not want to be associated. They didn't want their brand associated with something supporting that. And so they decided, again, to take a moral stand as a company and not support that. Now, I mean, people can argue whatever they want on that, but they did so. So it's not
right, but that is not. That's not a moral stand. That is a extremely carefully calculated and forecasted decision. What is going to be best for us in the long run? What's going to create more problems for us?
Well, I mean, there were people
boycott
that thought
by
it was really bad.
Christians. Right. What's going to create more problems for us, Crest, in the long run? Is it going to be a boycott by Christians because they do that? Or alternatively, is it going to be Crest not being in this movie? Because a boycott is, so it was clear, it's clear what I would have done. I don't want to be boycotted. I, as the owner of XYZ Corporation, would rather find another way to advertise than to do this thing. I God bless you, Patrick Swayze, but so I'm saying the board of directors didn't say we need to do the right thing. They said we need to do the right thing for Crest.
Well, I want you guys, I think we should wind down, but I want you guys to know that I've had the time of my life. I've never felt this way before.
Well, I just want you to know that I think you are like the wind in a tree.
Through my trees.
Awesome.
You hold the night. Okay.
God, I love this podcast.
This is great.
You guys are great.
We didn't even get to the point that in Memphis, Tennessee, there's like a 20-foot tall statue of the founder of the Klan. Yeah. Give it up for Memphis.
This is the stuff that just
Hats
breaks
off
my
to you,
heart.
Memphis.
I'm like, wow. Some little kid has to walk by that statue every day.
That's why the South is a different country. I'm not kidding.
Yes.
Like, it's so strange. But
oddly enough, they wanted to be.
Well, there you go.
Yes.
I would disagree that I can't believe you don't have any Northern pride or Midwestern pride. I feel like I've got a lot of Midwestern pride. I'm proud of like my meat and potatoes I love to eat and
cornhole, man.
For the rest of the nation,
cornhole.
it's just being American. That's your pride. And
I call it pop instead of soda. No, it's not being American. It's being from the Midwest. I think the South has more going for it than just like its past.
You're comparing the North to the South and saying the North are the ones that like to eat? I mean...
No, I'm saying we eat pigs and we eat corn. That's what we like. We grow those
South
things.
puts cheese on everything.
Yes.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. We drink our
everything.
tea unsweet, and I don't care.
So Southern pride, yes. Be very proud of your excellent iced tea, and be very proud
Mint and juleps.
of your juleps and your horse racing
Mardi
and
Gras.
your improbably long covered porches.
Yeah.
But let's let the thing about owning black people go.
Yes,
Yeah,
that
I agree.
Yeah,
we can
that
all
never
agree on.
happened.
Yes.
That never happened. Don't look over there at the
Yeah.
slave quarters.
Let's
Don't
in
look
fact-
over there at the old
yes.
slave cemetery. Don't look over there.
So yes, let's put the Confederate flag in a museum, and then let's set that museum on fire.
I think we've all learned something very important here today.
we have.
Burn things down. That's the answer.
Yes.
All right. Okay, thanks, guys. We will
All
do
right.
this again in a couple weeks.
All right.
All
Talk
right.
to you.
Thanks.
Talk to you
Bye.
later. Bye-bye.
Bye.